Hello everyone, good evening. Today we are going to start our lecture with MMPC-005, that is Quantitative Analysis for Managerial Applications. As you all know, IGNO divides the entire syllabus into 4 blocks. Today, let us discuss the first lesson of Block 1, that is Collection of Data. So, in this unit, we are going to discuss about how many types of data do we have, how to gather it, and what are the various ways in which we go for collection of data, and then we'll end the unit with census and sample. So, starting into the topic, our first topic of this particular unit is types of data. We have two different types of data, that is primary data and then we have secondary data. So what is the basic difference between primary data and secondary data? Primary data is that type of data which is collected by you on investigation. You investigate it, you find all the information and then collect the data by your own. That kind of data is called primary data. So primary data is generally very accurate because you are collecting it on your own. Whereas coming to the secondary data, this kind of data is nothing but when you use the data which is already collected by someone else for your specific use. That is called as secondary data. We might not be sure whether it is right or wrong, but still we try to gather the information from already existing sources and then work on it. Such kind of data is called secondary data. Now, how do we collect the primary data? Are there any methods? Obviously. We have two different methods of collecting primary data. The first method is observation method and the second method is questionnaire. In observation method, you will observe the surroundings, observe the things that are related to the data and then collect the data based upon your observations. For example, you do the lab experiments, right? You do the experiment, observe the things and then make the data according to it. Such kind of data is nothing but such kind of data collection happens through observation. Whereas coming to questionnaire, you generally ask the questions in order to gather the data. And this questionnaire can be asked in three different ways. One is through the personal interview. You take one-on-one interview session with the people from whom you want to gather the information, or you will send the questions to them through email and get the responses, or the third one is you make a call to them and through telephonic conversation you try to gather the answers for your questions. So these are the two methods through which we basically collect the primary data. Most of the time right now questionnaire is in demand because you might have seen most of the people, even when launching their product or working on some problem statements, they release survey forms in the form of questionnaires where they try to collect the information. So questionnaire is in demand right now. Now let us understand how are we going to proceed with a questionnaire. So whenever you want to work with a questionnaire, the first thing that you have to do is you have to design a questionnaire. Designing a questionnaire. So how are you going to design the questionnaire? Remember, whenever you are designing a questionnaire, there are certain aspects which you need to keep in mind. First thing is questions should be short, they should be clear, and then your questions should not be related to any sensitive or personal information. Whenever you are preparing a question, just imagine yourself being in the place where you answer and try to understand whether it is apt or not. Questions should be as simple and as clear as possible, and then you should not ask such questions which need calculations, and whatever questions you ask, they should be logical and that should not arise any controversy. So these are certain things we need to keep in mind while designing a questionnaire. In your IGNOU textbook, you find a questionnaire which is designed by IGNOU for your reference. You will understand how to design a questionnaire based on it. Once after you design a questionnaire, we go for editing the primary data. Before editing, we also have the other step called pre-testing the questionnaire. Once after you design the questionnaire, you pre-test it. You check whether the questions are repeated or whether there are any redundancies or incorrectness in the questionnaire and all. That pre-testing is also known as pilot survey. Pre-testing, we also call it as pilot survey. So in this we actually check for redundancies and correctness. Once after we are done with this, we collect the data. When we get the data, we edit the primary data. So let's see how are you going to edit primary data. So when you are editing the primary data, so there are certain things that you need to keep in mind. First thing, whether the data is complete or not. That is completeness. Whether the given data is accurate or not, you check for the accuracy. Then whether the data is consistent or not, and then you check for homogeneity, whether it is same throughout or not. So you check for these four qualities whenever you are editing the primary data, whether the data is complete, accurate, consistent and homogeneous. So these are the things that you do with respect to the primary data. In the next video, let's try to understand about sources of secondary data, and then we'll see how to take certain precautions while collecting the secondary data and what is the difference between census and sample. With that, we will close the first unit of Block 1. I hope this video is useful. For many such videos, please share, like and subscribe Platform for Creativity PGR. Thank you.